Any racing car is not designed for comfort, it's designed for speed.
They've been given the new iPhone, but they haven't been given the instruction manual. That's probably a terrible comparison. I don't know.
So how much of it was his pure talent? How much of it was him pressing a button or deploying that energy in the right moment?
I see that as a really interesting twist.
We should look forward now to the Chinese Grand Prix.
George Russell for world champion.
What? After one race?
We need the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I don't want a media-trained answer.
At the end of it, you were physically and mentally done.
The battle continues.
It's almost like you're saying that Formula One is full of egotistical, self-centered kind of people. And actually, you know what? I agree with you.
Up to speed.
Well, DC, welcome back. I think you were on a flight to continue your tour. Where were you? Tell us.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I headed off to New Zealand with my old teammate Mika Hakkinen. 7 years together as teammates.
Scandinavians and the Scot go on tour. So by the end of it, are you guys a little bit fed up of each other, or do you still enjoy seeing each other, or do you just avoid each other in the evenings?
Well, you know, I love Mika. I love the man. I've been through a range of emotions with him. I've seen him grinning like a Cheshire cat when he's won a world championship. I've seen him in tears of frustration when he's crashed the car. And as you all know, for different degrees in your journey of life, when you spend that much time with somebody, you don't have to do small talk. So Mika and I can sit comfortably beside each other for 10 minutes and we don't have to say anything. And then we'll reach around and we'll say something. We'll engage for however long that takes, and then we'll sit in silence. That is true friendship.
How rare is that, though, mate? Like, we all know that in F1, the first person you got to beat is your teammate, right? Because they're the only person with the same machinery that you have. Does that friendship come after you've stopped being teammates, or did you always have that friendship?
No, it comes after. when you're teammates, we used to get in two separate cars from Monaco, go to the airport in Nice, get in two separate planes, fly to wherever it was in Europe, get in two separate cars to the racetrack, then come and meet the engineers in the debrief, sitting opposite each other. That's how ridiculous competitive nature is. But today we don't have that. You know, I respect Mika. I think his achievements were amazing, especially when you consider he came back from that near-death accident in Adelaide 1995. The guy went toe-to-toe with Michael Schumacher and delivered the results. So I've got nothing but respect.
Love that, mate. Love that.
Well, it's a huge weekend for you. You're up for 4 Oscars at the weekend for the F1 movie. Are you feeling nervous?
I mean, I love the fact you say I'm up for 4 Oscars. Just total honour to be a tiny weeny part of something that is up for 4 Oscars. That's absolutely crazy, you know. Best Picture, who'd have thought that? But yeah, can't wait to watch. Been speaking to some of the gang who are heading out to LA this week for that, obviously. Huge week for the movie industry, huge week for F1. I've said it before, I'm really disappointed for the guys on cinematography that they weren't nominated, because I think that not only in what they did, but how they did it in terms of designing new technology that will be used in the future of filmmaking. I thought I thought they really deserved a nod for that. But you know, best film, like best movie, that's a crazy thing.
I mean, Brad Pitt, is he good at racing? Any good?
He's good at driving, apparently, from what the guys at Carlin were saying, who did all the driver training. Because when the movie started filming, the SAG-AFTRA strike hit, so Brad went off and just drove F2 cars basically for 6 months. And they reckon he would have been mid-grid in F2, which when you look at the quality of F2 is decent. So I've got my fingers crossed for an all-celebrity Le Mans team, including Patrick Dempsey, Brad Pitt, and I don't know, Fassbender.
Well, you really know how to tap into the TikTok girls with that line.
Thank you.
Well, it's a big week for Formula One, guys. DC, I don't know, did we ever get your full recap of what you thought? You were down under, you were on the ground for the team. What were the rumblings in the paddock or after the race, certainly? Or I mean, the audience is very, very mixed in terms of what they felt about the race.
Yeah, look, I was in the passport line leaving Australia with a guy who, even older than me, who was saying, I'm done with Formula One. I do 6 Grand Prix a year. I've got, all the Ferrari cars. I've got a RB17, which is a £5 million car coming to him. So this is a high-end customer. And he's going, I don't want to see managers. I want to see racers. And I'm going, okay, I hear you, but let's give it some time. If I step back and look at it from my point of view, I really enjoyed the first few, the opening laps of the Grand Prix. There was pass, there was repass. The drivers were figuring out how to use the tools at their disposal. And has that not always been the case? When Cosworth came with the DFV, it rewrote the rules of Formula One. Anyone who didn't have an engine like that was like, forget it. So I think we need to give it time. The best drivers will always be able to utilize the tools. I think there's some interesting tactics of Mercedes have probably given their customers the information quite late. Why not? They're not in the business of having McLaren win or their other customers. So as we know in Formula One, things change quickly. Let's have this conversation again in 6 months.
I think that's a really sort of smart way to go about it, DC. I think we said the other day, one swallow does not a summer make. But I think the reason that there's consternation, the reason that there's controversy is what we understand overtaking to be looked very artificial. And in those opening laps, they were really exciting. And I was loving it, right? I was really enjoying it. But then I went back and rewatched it and watched the passes. And I'm like, how much of this is down to having to manage the battery and manage deployment? And how much of it is, balls out, late braking, car on edge, overtaking as we understand it to be? Because getting rid of DRS this year was supposed to be, we're going back to purity, right? Purity of racing. And that's going to be returned. And what we got is something that's the polar opposite of that. I mean, we're one race in. And if we look back, 8 years to the last major engine regulation change in 2014, everyone was panning the sport. Everyone was saying it was lost. Everyone was saying it was a disaster. And Formula One found its way through and found its way to a really great period of good racing and great championship fights. So, look, I don't think it's the end of the world, and I think it will find its way. But if we're having to sort of figure out what is overtaking in inverted commas, is that a deeper, more sort of soul-searching question that Formula One needs to have?
Here you go, Will. I've got another line for you when you're doing Drive to Survive. Overtaking is when you end up in front of the car that you were behind. There you go, buddy.
DC's gunning for your job.
There's a line for you. No, I mean, it is sort of a very mixed feelings out there. And I'm sure that F1 and all of the teams as well will be concerned, not only about what the drivers are saying, but also especially what the audience think. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a spectator sport. You want your spectators to love the product that you're putting out. But here we are. We've got what we've got. And now we've just got to make lemonade with the lemons that we've got. And I'm pretty sure, as you say, DC, Melbourne, we know, was somewhat of an outlier, one of the worst tracks in terms of that harvesting deployment issue. And it might get better, but I don't think that we can prejudge what the rest of the season is going to look like off of one sort of sample of racing. Let's see what happens. And I think that the teams and F1 will be quite reactive. But yes, as you say, well, DRS was sort of also an aid for drivers to overtake. But I guess people think of F1, they think of high performance, they think of the drivers being on the edge, the cars being on the edge, and maybe this is taking steps backwards from that. So I get why the audience have spoken and they're frustrated. But yeah, let's give it some time. Let's see how quickly F1 and the teams react to this issue.
Look, Max has come out a big talking point. He obviously went from P20 to P6. He got himself driver of the day, which has to be one of my favourite interviews afterwards, where he's told and he gives this very sarcastic, like, yay, woohoo, as if he cares at all about winning driver of the day. But there's now a lot of discussion whether, if he's a sleeping giant or not. I mean, what do we think?
I think one person we probably didn't speak enough about over the course of the weekend and in our review was Isaac Hadjar and the job that he did in Melbourne, because we've spoken so much in the past about that second seat being cursed. Max Verstappen out in Q1. Isaac takes it all the way through to Q3, performs absolutely brilliantly, and then was racing well up near the front as well until his engine went bang. So I think when you look at what Isaac was able to do in that car, when you look at how Max was able to fight his way through the field, do Red Bull have a package that is good. Yes. Is it good enough to compete with Ferrari and Mercedes? Time will tell. But I was very enthused by what I saw from Isaac as to the potential of what Max could have delivered if he too had made it through into Q3. So I think a lot of positivity.
Yeah, Max driver of the day. I mean, yeah, I think he even said in one of his post-race interviews that he didn't feel that he did much of anything impressive out there, and he was just sort of passing the traffic, I think is the term that he used. Obviously, Max, you're always going to give him credit, right? Not every driver can get through the field as quickly as he potentially can. But again, we're talking about this whole artificial overtaking. So how much of it was his pure talent? How much of it was him pressing a button or deploying that energy in the right moment? It's like we wish we would have seen more of what he was doing in the cockpit. I feel like the cameras focused very much on what was going on at the front. But yes, I think Red Bull as a whole did a pretty good job throughout the weekend, although we did see some pretty significant reliability issues. I mean, that issue that Max had in qualifying, locking the rear wheels is something that is concerning, particularly at such high speed. I remember having a crash really high speed due to a rear locking issue, and let me tell you, it does not fill you with confidence as a driver to know that you might hit the brakes and all of a sudden the rear will lock. That's not a good feeling at all. And then Isaac's issue, yes, he was racing at the front, but there was already a lot of messages going back and forth between him and the engineers about doing things differently in the cockpit because he was struggling with something, which then ended up with being that engine failure that we saw. So are they potential sleeping giants? I don't know. It certainly looks like they have some issues that they need to iron out, much like a lot of the teams will. And China is a sprint weekend, so no time for the teams to get on top of the things that they're doing out there.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm en route to China, and so we're going to get into that. And remember, a year ago, Lewis Hamilton got the victory, his only victory with Ferrari at that sprint.
I mean, looking ahead to China, what really made me laugh is George said that he was flying with Lewis. And then he, similarly to kind of what he did in Drive to Survive, he comes out with his lines. He was imitating Lewis, being like, oh, he's going to be asking me, saying, your engine's so good, your compression ratio is illegal. And then the interviewer was like, what are you going to do, George? He's like, I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm going to ignore it. And he's such a wind-up. But, it's good to see. I love seeing that side of their personalities. I think it's great.
I'm curious to know, when George goes on a plane with Lewis, does he keep his sunglasses on? Because a year ago, on the flight back to Europe, we all rushed to the airport normally on Sunday night, and George is there with his sunglasses on in the cabin. So I put my sunglasses on to talk to him, and it was at that point he was like, "Yeah, maybe I should take these off."
Take them off.
So good.
I wondered, that's such a weird thing for him to do. Certainly because he wouldn't be wearing sunglasses for maybe the same reason you would be, DC.
Yeah, well, I'm hiding my red eyes. He's hiding the fact he's famous.
I love the fact you held up a mirror to him and just went, this is what you look like. And he's like, right, take those off. Also in the headlines this week, Toto Wolff reportedly interested in buying the Alpine stake that Christian Horner was reportedly interested in buying. The battle continues.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Surely you can tell us, DC, what's really going on there in the background. Come on, spill the gossip, spill the beans. Here's the place to do it.
Spill the tea, let's go.
There's no question that Christian has unfinished business in Formula One. And there's no question, of course, that Alpine, amongst some of the other more, let's say, back-of-the-grid teams, are, well, in fairness to Alpine, they got in the top 10. Well done, Pierre Gasly, that new relationship with Mercedes. So full credit to where they finished at the weekend. But let's say we know they have a group of investors who've invested not for the long term, they've invested for the gain. And Christian has pretty openly declared that he's got unfinished business. So I see that as a really interesting twist because, Toto is a private equity guy before he was ever involved in Formula One. And if it's another opportunity to be part of a group that can buy in and ride the wave of growth that's there in Formula One. And there's no love lost, is there, between these guys? But I actually think it's a shame because let's say for Netflix and Drive to Survive, you've got Toto, who's best friends with Fred. You've got, Zach, who is a customer team to Mercedes. Although, actually, Will, I'd be interested in your point of view when it comes to Andrea Stella talking about he doesn't feel happy with the service he's getting from Mercedes.
Exactly.
But before we get into that, they're all having a sort of love in, aren't they? We need the good, the bad, and the ugly.
On that point about the engines, I mean, you were mentioning at the top that Mercedes sort of don't have to, and they're playing it politically to get that information to their customer teams as late as possible. I know, Will, obviously in our last episode, you were saying that you didn't like the way that Aston came out and sort of bashed Honda so early. So what political move is this from Andrea Stella to come out and sort of, call out Mercedes when Mercedes are the ones providing their engines? I mean, is that a tactical move? Is it a bad tactical move? Is this a conversation that should be being had behind closed doors rather than publicly? I don't know. It's all a bit of a mess.
It's a mess, isn't it? It's a bold move. It's certainly a bold move because you can't imagine those conversations haven't happened behind closed doors in the off season and leading up to Australia. So if they're making it public, then it feels like a bit of a last resort that, hey, we've paid for a service and we don't feel we're getting it, so we're going to make that public. I found that to be a very bold move and indicative of, a discontent which probably isn't limited to McLaren, but probably extends to the other Mercedes teams if Andrea's coming out and saying it. Just add it to the list of people upset after Australia. It's absolutely crazy.
But DC, you were saying, like, fair enough that they're holding back and, Mercedes can do that. But surely there's rules within, when you're a factory team, that there has to be accountability that they're held to, no?
Yeah, there is, absolutely. And they have to supply, whether you're Mercedes, whether you're Ferrari, whether you're RB, maybe slightly different because they give Red Bull Racing and RB Racing, but you have to homologate and deliver in racing the same product to all the customer teams in racing. I think what Andrea Sella, if I can read between the lines, and Will, you've had your finger on the pulse of these guys, they only deliver something publicly if they really want to assert pressure. And what I understood from that is that Mercedes gave their customer teams a good product for winter testing. They then gave them the real product for Grand Prix racing, and they were playing catch up.
Yeah, yeah, and it almost feels like they've been given the new iPhone, but they haven't been given the instruction manual, and they're trying to figure out what it does. And they're still working on the basis of their old Android or whatever. That's probably a terrible comparison.
It's like DC trying to set up for the pod.
Yeah, it's like DC trying to set up his phone for the podcast. That's what it is.
Ouch, guys, shame. Give him a break. Give him a break.
Sorry,
he's down.
DC.
He's standing upside down right now. Give him a break.
I know. He's got 75 wires and he's on a completely different time scale. But at least he's here and not in the sky again. This is you saying, are we going to get invited to DC's wedding? He'll give us the wrong date and the wrong time. I'm
laser focused on that.
You guys haven't been asked to do the speech yet. I thought we all got that email.
I was begging to be best man, but I'm still in waiting. So we will see. We've still got some time. But yeah, it's just very bizarre. I mean, you could kind of argue that Mercedes need to understand the product before they send it out to their customers. And I guess that's why they were waiting to do that as late as they did. I don't think that there's a lot of tactical play. That wouldn't be in their interest to harm their customers, because at the end of the day, like, you still want to provide a good service for your customers, but they put it to right the limit where they have to give them the same product that they have, which was just before the first event. And I think that maybe now going forward, hopefully that will be better when there are any tweaks and updates. But yeah, it's very interesting to see. I agree with you that by the time they're having to put this message out through the press, it signals a little bit of desperation. So wonder how long those conversations have been going on behind the scenes.
Back to the original point, though, about Christian and Toto. Toto used to have his shareholding in Williams, which he sold. I have to raise the issue of conflict of interest. And, Toto, obviously, Alpine have Mercedes engines this year. I do, most sports leagues in the world have conflict of interest clauses that you can't own majority stakes or I think, stakes in some cases in multiple teams, but, specifically to limit the issue of conflict of interest. So I find it a really interesting one that he would be allowed to do that and that the rules of the sport would allow him to do that.
Is it not only linked to sort of managerial board level? Because we all have shares in Ferrari, Mercedes, Renault. We've discussed this offline, don't we?
Did you buy us some?
No. Not yet. We're
No,
still
we
collecting our coins, DC. We're still collecting our coins.
Yeah, I think as long as you're not in an influential position, probably just being a sort of, let's say, arm's length investor is not an issue. But it does feel like it's a bit more than that that's being suggested.
But and obviously Red Bull own two teams, so there clearly isn't that restriction in Formula One for people who are new to the sport and see it through the lens of other sports. You are able to have a controlling interest in more than one team in Formula One, regardless of how controversial that actually could be.
Actually, can I just jump in on that? Because, hey, guys, did you see Arvid Lindblad going wheel to wheel with Isaac Hadjar? This was like, if they're both owned by the same company, and I experienced it when I was racing as well, they don't get involved. They let them race. Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. Thank you, racing gods, that's the case, because he got his elbows out. How brilliant was he at the weekend?
I thought Arvid was super impressive over the weekend in Australia. The way that he approached the entire weekend. We saw last year in Australia, a lot of the rookies kind of crumble under the pressure. And watching Arvid's approach, hearing how he spoke to the press and just the maturity within him. I think he's a super impressive kid anyway, but to be so young, to score points on debut, to just approach the weekend and handle the pressure in the way that he did, I thought was immensely, immensely impressive.
I feel like we should look forward now to the weekend, to the Chinese Grand Prix. Now, we did our predictions for the first race. DC, you weren't here when we discussed, but Naomi and I came out on top. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make it a habit. We're going to make it a bit of a tradition.
Oh,
that
gosh.
Pre
I
every
hate
race.
predictions. We got it right once. We should have just parked and left it there like a Nico
exactly,
Rosberg.
Exactly.
We're going to be doing predictions for every race. We're also going to be doing our wildest prediction. And on this episode, we are going to do our prediction for who we think is going to win the season and our wildest prediction.
I'm sorry, this was not in the script, Jolie. I have not prepared it. Have you just invented this off the cuff because you did well in race one and you just want to totally embarrass us?
I don't want a media-trained answer. I want off the cuff. So we're going to start with, I think maybe let's start with our predictions for the whole season. So firstly, who you think is going to win? Team,
What?
driver.
After one race?
Yeah. And your wildest prediction. Because if we do it after 5 races, what's the point?
I'm going, as I said, pre-season, George Russell for the championship, McLaren for the comeback team. I know that may sound weird when they won the World Championship last year, but let's say they were a good half second off in Melbourne. They're going to be pushing Mercedes later in the year.
So that's your wildest prediction.
Yeah, and Will to win an Oscar.
Okay,
That's a good one.
I can go next. I think George to win alongside Mercedes. And then my wildest prediction is for Audi to be the top of the midfield. I mean, it's obviously unlikely because Haas are looking great. VCARB are looking great as well. But this is wildest prediction. DC, I saw your face there, but let's remember, it's got to be wild. We want people to be like, what?
Oh, to hell with it. Charles Leclerc to be champion. And wild guess will be... I'll make the same prediction I made for Australia. Cadillac to score points.
Obviously, I'm going to agree with most of you. George Russell for world champion, I would say, with Mercedes. I think that's not going to come as much of a shock. It's hardly a wild prediction. But then for wildest prediction, I'm kind of split between two thoughts. I'm split between Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad start rubbing wheels because they want that seat at Red Bull, which we don't know is up for grabs. Hadjar is doing a great job, but I think the two of them are going to be fighting each other to be top dog at RB. So that's going to be worthy of watching. Or alternatively, Fernando Alonso leaves because things are not shaping up at Aston.
I like that.
He's going to become a dad this year, right? He's going to become a dad this year. Maybe, other things in life become more important. A lot like we've heard from Max after becoming a dad. He wants to spend more time with his family. There's life outside of racing. Fernando's been in F1 for a very long time. And is it worth going around in circles at the back of the grid if you maybe they won't be retiring as much as they were in Australia, but... if they're just filling numbers at the back of the grid, is it worth being here?
I don't think that's that wild. I think there's a big possibility that happens, to be honest.
Okay, well, we know we all love a bit of predictions, especially this early on, but let's join back at the end of the season to see if we were wrong or right. And let's see how our predictions, or those we predicted, will do in China. But in the meantime, don't go anywhere, because in a moment, we are going to get a question from sports broadcaster Gabby Logan, who hosts Global's podcast, The Sports Agents.
So I'm in the gym, so I think a question that piques my interest is about fitness. I'm always fascinated to know what Formula One drivers do outside of the car. Do they plod on a bike like Kenny, or do they lift weights like me? Maybe they do Pilates. I want to know the fitness regime of a Formula One driver. Thank you.
Share your neck routine, DC. That's what people want to hear.
Yeah, no, the neck was really important. So I used to hang 30 kilograms off my neck, off the end of the bed. I actually traveled, even in the winter. If I went off to the Caribbean on holiday, I carried a 30 kilogram ski helmet with the weights wrapped around me. So, a bit of excess baggage. But I wanted to be able to train my neck, even if I was in a foreign location. So, look, it's all about endurance. So we're more sort of Mo Farah than we are, let's say, 100-meter
Usain Bolt.
runner. Usain Bolt, there's a good example, the fastest man on earth. So we need to build up resistance rather than carrying a lot of weight. So the drivers all tend to be a little bit skinny, but they have long, lean muscles and a strong neck and a good core.
I always wonder when I see some of those drivers, because it's obviously not my case. Okay, it is not my case, right? I have relatively heavy lower limbs. But when you see some of these drivers, they really are like, not like even a swimmer's physique, but they're obviously a lot bigger. I mean, Esteban Ocon's a good example, like really big on the top, but then like really skinny at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is, because there's no point having big thighs in the race car. There's no point carrying that muscle.
Tell me about it.
But basically, the drivers are all what we'd call quite skinny athletes. They're more like endurance athletes. They don't want to carry that mass and that muscle, because we know muscle is weighing a lot. So, some of the smaller guys can kind of pump it up and show off their muscles. But largely speaking, it's about big necks, good lower core, and glutes. Racing drivers, as you know, Naomi, their glutes are like steel because the legs are falling over in the high-speed corners. So it's a great workout for your butt.
Yeah, and there's also that sort of shin muscle that always aches also from holding your foot off of the brake specifically. But, that's one that really niggles at you, doesn't it, DC?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jolie, here's the thing. Do some toe taps. So your heels are on the floor. Just have your toes tapping. I guarantee within 30 seconds, you have a cramp in the front of the opposite of your calf, whatever you call that area.
I'm trying it now. I'm no cramp yet.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, I'm still going. Well, whilst I go, I guess we can touch. Actually, yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah.
But whilst I keep toe tapping, I mean, we obviously know that the drivers love a bit of paddle. They love a bit of golf. I mean, I found it really interesting. I was in Bahrain about a month ago, and Science was in the same hotel as me, and it was during testing. Comes back from testing onto the beach, playing volleyball literally for an hour and a half straight with his trainer, his dad, his girlfriend was there. But they love it. I don't think I watched him sit still at any point, because both of you will be able to say you're so used to constantly having to stay at the top of your game. Fitness is second nature. By the way, DC, I do have that cramp now.
Well, if there's one thing that Drive to Survive showed us this year, it's that Isaac Hadjar's absolutely ripped, which I was not expecting. That guy he's a machine. Lindblad as well. Like, he's really impressed me with how his training has gone over the winter. He looks incredible. But look, they're all elite sports people, and I think it's one thing that gladly is more respected and represented these days is that Formula One drivers are some of the most elite athletes in the world.
They'll be a part of this audience, which are real fans of the sport that know how physical Formula One is and how physical motorsport is. But a question I still so often get from people who are just finding out about the sport is like, oh, what? It's physical? I mean, I think people assume that it's a lot like driving their road car, which has got all the sort of assistances you may need, power steering, assisted braking, everything you could think of. In the racing car, whilst yes, Formula One does have power steering, it is so much more physical. It's so hard. And then besides just the physicality of driving the car, you're also wearing a loads of layers, right? You've got you've got fireproof underwear, you've got a fireproof racing suit, which is typically made out of 3 layers of that fireproof material. You've got boots, you've got a balaclava, you've got a helmet, and then you've got all the heat coming off of the brakes, coming off of the engine. It's kind of like you take your spinning bike and you chuck it into the sauna and then you go for a ride.
It is.
That's what it's like.
It's not comfortable. A Grand Prix car, any racing car, is not designed for comfort. It's designed for speed. And that's why you never see race drivers sit in the car sort of smiling for long periods of time. When they come in the garage and the job's done, they get out.
Especially in the lead up to Singapore, we've seen races like that with heat and humidity. I mean, straight away they're in their ice bath straight afterwards. And exactly what you said, Naomi, I think it's a lot of people don't quite understand.
Well, there's certainly races where the challenge is greater than others. As you said, Singapore is one of them. Qatar can be another one where the workout routine does get tweaked, doesn't it, DC?
Yeah, the guys, I used to do my training outdoors on a rowing machine for an hour in the midday sun ahead of going to places like Malaysia and Singapore because you wanted to replicate the conditions. There's no point training in a nice, air-conditioned gym because that doesn't replicate what a race car's like. The cockpit temperature is 50 degrees and above. It's tough, but I think it should be. That, to me, was one of the things I loved about Grand Prix racing. At the end of it, you were physically and mentally done.
So sprint weekend for the F1 drivers, it's going to be really tough for them out there, but a lot to look forward to, including F1 Academy is back this weekend for a new season. For those of you who don't know much about F1 Academy, it's a series for young female racers. It's a one-make racing series. Every weekend consists of 1 practice session, 1 qualifying session, and then 2 races. The first race is set by the qualifying order, but the top 8 are reversed, and then the second race is a feature race based off of qualifying results. So, Jolie, what are you looking forward to the most with F1 Academy this season?
I'm buzzing for it. It's gone from leap to leap to leap to leap to strength to strength. I mean, last season, obviously, we saw Doriane Pin win, and, I was fortunate enough to work with her on and off the track. She was absolutely great, and, she's still within the Mercedes family. So I'm super excited to see the stars of this season and next season. So obviously how it works is you're only allowed to be in F1 Academy for 2 seasons max. So it's something slightly different, but it means it gives opportunities to many more people, many more young girls. Susie Wolff has been absolutely boss kicking to get the growth. So I'm very excited.
DC, you were obviously somewhat of a pioneer with W Series, who was kind of, can we even call it the predecessor of F1 Academy? So how do you feel about how far, this concept has gone and what it's doing for young women in the sport, not just in the cockpit, but also in the ecosystem of motorsports?
Yeah, I feel that I have to put a mark in the sand here because W Series was essentially what F1 Academy has become. The vision of that with the founder investor Sean Wadsworth was to have the Formula One teams having their own cars, and that would help, of course, promote Formula One. Look, this is controversial, but at that time, certain people didn't want that to be the case because they didn't own it. W Series did it 3 years, and then it came to its conclusion. And so, absolute full credit to Susie, an ex-teammate in DTM, a fearless racer in her own mind. But let's just remember where this all started. It started with W Series, and F1 Academy has become this incredible showcase for women in motorsport and great talent in motorsport. And we will, I absolutely believe, within the next decade, have a woman in Formula One that is there on merit, because, motor racing is a meritocracy. It's not let's show friends. And the more, the better, I say, because I always feel that motorsport doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter, race, religion, sex. What matters is the stopwatch. And there is no question in my mind that there'll be a woman in Formula One in the future on merit based on this stopwatch.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, DC. There's obviously potential politics in the background on who deserves credit and where credit is due there. But, having been one of the drivers on the grid in that first season of W Series, I just remember how much backlash there was around the concept. And I think that W Series were the ones to take this concept to the world and had to suffer sort of everyone's opinions, people's doubts about it and all of that stuff. So they definitely paved the way for what F1 Academy has got today. But honestly, as a female who grew up in the sport, who hoped to have opportunities that sometimes I didn't necessarily have access to, I think the most important thing is, regardless of the politics in the background, is what opportunities are these girls getting, and is the opportunity doing good for them and for women in the sport? And I think that, yes, the baton has obviously been passed on now to F1 Academy, but those girls are in front of the F1 audience over 7 weekends in the calendar. The teams are now involved. More and more of the teams are having the drivers actually work for them as development drivers, having them in their simulators. And so they're getting access to things that they really need access to, because, that's what we need. Is we don't only need equality, we need parity, we need access, we need opportunities, we need exposure, and they're getting that. So yes, the politics are there. I hear you, and I agree with you that W Series were the pioneers, but the girls are out there, they're going racing, and there's so much exposure to them from a worldwide perspective. So looking forward to seeing who's going to be champion in F1 Academy this year. Any favorites so far?
I'm going to say that Ella Lloyd for McLaren is looking strong.
Well, if you want to find out, then you're going to have to tune in this weekend to see who's looking strong in F1 Academy. Well, that's all we have time for on this podcast, but have no fear. We will be back on Monday with a recap of all the racing that went on in China. So make sure you come and tune in for that. If you aren't following us on socials, everybody, head over to your social platforms. We are at Up to Speed Show. Alternatively, if you want to send us an email, it's uptospeed@global.com. We are putting out episodes every Monday and every Thursday. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all of that good stuff so you never miss an episode. DC, Jolie, Will, I'm going to say 谢谢, which is thank you in Chinese.
I love
Loving
the
it.
multicultural, multi-language. I only speak Scottish, I'm sorry.
Right, we'll see you on Monday.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
This has been a Global Player original production.